Hello, I'm Winkers of Cardboard Bastards, and it's time to freshen up Dominating Blow for the 3.19 environment. Dominating Blow did fairly well last league. My own character reached level 97 and comfortably smacked just about everything, including the Maven, which honestly I'd never gotten around to fighting until that point. 3.19's patch notes are out, and we know a lot more about the league than we did before. Let me start by saying one thing. I hate minions. I think a lot of people do, but we find ourselves thinking about a minion build because they're strong in a league start scenario. This is going to be less true in 3.19, but Dominating Blow was very strong at league start, so I'm confident it'll still level just fine. Minion builds have these scaling levers that are very easy to manage, and a lot of the mods that make them stronger don't actually show up until we reach maps, which means they're balanced around us not having them before then. That's why I'm here to recommend Dominating Blow, a minion build that plays like a melee build. Not just a melee build, but a melee strike build, and it clears well, and it feels good, and damn, do you have a lot of survivability. Determination, huge armor values backing up Molten Shell, 85% maximum for all elemental resistances, and plenty of mod room on your equipment for strong chaos res as well. You're also 100% unaffected by curses, as well as 100% reduced effective chill and shock, and immune to freeze via Pantheon powers. Your minions are very durable, and Dominating Blow consumes the corpses of enemies you kill, so it naturally prevents some corpse shenanigans like porcupines. But enough of that, let's talk numbers. For starters, with just levels and points invested in your skill tree and links for all your gems, this build spins up to almost a million DPS. Here we are on a 6 link, admittedly, with the level 3 in power. Typically these aren't too hard to get early on because people are spamming corruptions on them. Before you get this, you run minion speed, and it's a bit worse. But this is an inevitability. Trust me, a level 3 in power is like 50C, not very far into the league. It's pretty comparable to what we had in 3.19, all things considered. We're expected to be a little weaker at this point, but it gets better, and it gets, what we lost back from gearing options, and even then some. This doesn't account for your +3 weapon or +2 global levels on your helmet or anything else. Our ideal weapon is a +3 melee weapon, with the mods +1 to socketed gems and +2 to socketed melee gems, and a suffix. In a perfect world, that suffix is local attack speed to make swinging feel smoother, although this really isn't very necessary. We then use the can have up to 3 crafted modifiers craft to add on a % minion damage and % minion attack and cast speed craft. Equipping this weapon alone takes our DPS from an acceptable, 800, 900k to well over 2 million, honestly. A brass dome, combined with your skill tree and prioritizing armor bases, more or less fixes any remaining survivability issues you have in a big, tanky way. At this point, the build will very likely do most, if not everything you want. That's not at all where it ends though, merely a representation of how relatively easy the build is to gear up at the start. We have 4 jewel sockets to augment our DPS even further. Ideally, with very well rolled ghastly eye jewels. Something along the lines of this. Phantasmal Dominating Blow gives us another 2 sentinels, resulting in a more multiplier to our damage in excess of 20%. This doesn't include a corrupted level 4 in power, as you can see there. The +2 global gem modifiers that appear on our helmets, or a Darkness Enthroned with 2 really great Ghastly Eye Jewels socketed into it for even more minion damage. What's more, all of these numbers are on default attack, which doesn't account for the extra DPS we get from Crusade Slam being used. In reality, it's between the two. Additionally, it's also done on normal Sentinels of Dominance only, so rest assured that in a mapping environment, the DPS is actually much, much higher. Add in an Ashes of the Stars, and you're probably entering aspirational content. This amulet does a lot, not just because of the +1 level, but also because the amount of Sentinels we use increases by 3. Yeah. After all is said and done, this build with high defenses and high quality of life reaches nearly 7 million DPS with decent investment, or gets to around 5 million DPS without Ashes of the Stars, and it's incredibly fun to boot. At this point, you're either in or you're out. The POB is available with what I believe to be more easily attainable gear to get you started on goals, but now we're going to talk about what makes this promising league starter into a good one. This begins with leveling to 28 when we actually get Dominating Blow, and what decisions along the way make this a smooth process. The footage for this leveling process was recorded at the end of 3.17, by the way, so ignore the specters. It was slightly harder in 3.18, but they've toned down the Arch Nemesis mods, as well as the amount of rares we're going to be seeing, so I get the feeling we're going to be pretty close to 3.17 leveling experience, except for in the middle of leveling, where our skills, proportionally, after changes to minions, are going to be at their lowest point. but that was when we were strongest before, so it's still going to feel fine. You're going to wake up on a beach, you're going to kill a zombie, and you're going to get Glacial Hammer. Slap it in your weapon, kill Hillock, and immediately pick up Smite. Picking up Smite does a number of things for us, but the most important one at the start is that it gives you a reason to pick up Ancestral Call as well, which you're going to need. Stick with Scepters as your weapons, we'll explain why in a bit. Buy up a Raised Zombie Gem as well, clear the Mudflats, backtrack to Hailrake for your Quicksilver Flask for the waypoint, and then get your Ancestral Call and purchase a Holy Relic. Holy Relic is our spin-up minion, and does just enough damage to kill out those first few enemies in a map. It also holds Feeding Frenzy, which gives us a very nice DPS boost on our Dominating Blow Sentinels. Smite your way over to the prison with your posse of lightning charged zombies, and curse Chris Wilson's name for making the damn thing so squishy. Melee Splash is a fine enough support to get upon reaching the prison. I put it in my zombies to up their clear a bit. Kill the Warden, grab Flame Dash and Vitality for some added survivability, go to the beach, enter a spooky cave or two, and get the first boost and speed waiting for us. Absolution. You keep Smite at this point, weaving it in occasionally to proc a heal from your Holy Relic, and give your now myriad minions their lightning damage buff. But otherwise, from here on out, we blast people with Absolution. For these reasons, dual Scepters are the way to go for now. Blast your way to some skill points, get comfortable with the playstyle, and marvel at how well this setup actually handles that salty sea bitch GGG decided need to be so fucking overtuned. By this point, you've picked up your first minion survivability nodes, and after grabbing Herald of Purity, things are starting to feel very smooth. What's more, the clear is actually very respectable for the level, and without needing more than a 2-link on basically anything, you're doing just fine on bosses as well. Get the Controlled Destruction support for your Holy Relic from Silk, but put it in Absolution for now. And you can swap the gem over to Holy Relic when you get Dominating Blow in a bit. This will take you all the way to level 28 and Gravy Sauce, whose death earns you your primary skill gem. Make sure you pick up Vulnerability, Convocation, and Determination along the way, but don't start using Determination just yet. If you've got the chance to spare, pick up Flesh Offering in town and Desecration from Act 2. These replace our Spectre setup, but don't fret, it's really only useful in the more severe single target situations, as was the Spectre setup. There's a lot of turnover in our minions on Dominating Blow, so the Frenzy charges weren't doing a ton before anyways, unless we were specifically fighting a Pinnacle boss. With a small army at your back, as well as all the attack speed you need to feel comfortable, go ahead and ditch your zombies. Pick up a minion speed support and throw Ancestral Call and Melee Splash on Dominating Blow for now. Drop Herald of Purity now as well, and start using Determination. You'll cruise along without a care in the world through your first lab and all content until you bop Calm and Duress on the noggin, at which point give up Melee Splash for Multi-Strike. Do not get rid of Ancestral Call. You will hate yourself if you don't make it easier to hit enemies with Dominating Blow, and ending up much slower for it. Additionally, with the way newer Atlas influences work, it's very easy to get +1 strike, which will give you back the support gem slot for later anyways. Also, keep the Melee Splash for later, as it takes Ancestral Call's place once you do get +1 strike. Along the way, you'll be offered a choice of Golem. Go ahead and snag Summon Carrion Golem and support it with Maim and maybe Meat Shield if you like. I recommend it, but it's probably the thing to cut if you're overloaded with gem slots at this point. Also, pick up Brutality. Brutality interacts negatively with our ability to dominate rare and magical mobs that have Arch Nemesis mods. But we swap it with Melee Splash in the endgame whenever we fight a Pinnacle boss, because we're not going to be dominating those kinds of mobs anyways. As you level, you'll pick up pretty much all of your minion nodes fairly early on, and then go chasing some serious survivability. I reached mapping in my test run with about 3k HP, 11k armor, and with 2 levels to go until 68. I was about to allocate the points that would give me all 80% elemental resistances and 100% reduced effective curses on myself. This fresh start to mapping trek took me 6 hours, but that was in 3.17, although I'm no expert at early leveling. It was effortless, and my gear was trash, but everything was fine, and my experiences in 3.18 were actually about the same. Except for the very start, when, things were crazy. We might be nerfed, but so are Arch Nemesis rares, so I'm confident this build will still start the league just fine. Especially if you can find a +1 or +2 weapon along the way, or a global minion gems helmet. But enough about leveling, this is when the game begins. If you're in softcore, hop into maps and go. If you're in hardcore, you might want to do a bit of side leveling and finish getting your max res, and maybe even call to arms for instant and easy Enduring Cry. Low tier maps are insidious in their difficulty these days, and you might feel your gem level and your lack of links start to hold you back as you progress. It's important to do what's XP efficient for leveling your gems in a league start for a build like this, as well as prioritize getting your starter weapon. For these reasons, you want to work hard on Betrayal at the start. You could potentially get what you need from Betrayal before even entering maps, this being the % minion damage craft. With a Regal Orb, a Pile Driver at least eye level 63, and some alterations, you can easily put together a +2 melee gem plus 80% minion damage weapon. Eventually, you'll upgrade this to a Judgment Staff to make use of various block nodes and achieve a very respectable 42% spell block all the time, as well as 22% attack block that becomes 72% attack block for 2 of every 5 seconds. Sounds weird, but that's the way Guardian goes. I will add as a warning here in the closing that you have two major considerations when playing to always keep in mind. The first is that Veritania can and will kill your minions with her Storm, making the fight kind of annoying unless you can get up to absurd levels of DPS. The second is that the Searing Exarch's Meatball phase really likes to just explode all over the place on your minions, and even with 85% max fire res, that can be really difficult to deal with from a hardcore perspective. It can also become easier if you get good at using your minions as a shield, but it's jarring to see it happen, and honestly, I haven't managed to do it. That said, you will survive a couple balls to the face, or even several if you have Molten Shell up. So, we've hit nearly 10 million DPS by PoB warring with not much in here. What else can be done, though? What else can be done for the build to make it stronger? Well, we have life rings here that we slot in, like typically, and that's good, but these are probably going to be replaced with bone rings in the future. We don't know what the availability of these rings are going to be, but I'm very confident they're going to be some of the best. If that happens, you can make up some life over here, and in the max tree even anyways, there's some life nodes that are pretty easily acquired. As far as anoints go, I like to anoint combat stamina early on because it's cheap, and then after that I go for generally what's most survivable, because as a minion build, we don't really have a big damage anoint. If you're really min-maxing and you want to get a huge burst of minion damage, you can go to this jewel socket here and replace it with an Elegant Hubris. And if you look around, you'll notice from here, that's 2 points, 2 points, 2 points. This is already hit. You'll actually lose this, but I'll talk about that in a moment. And then if you come over here, that's 1 point. You have another 2 point to reach the nodes there. And what you're looking for is the Slumlord notable, which gives 80% increased minion damage. It's huge. If you get a good one, it can be the biggest source of increased damage for your build anywhere. And then you just kind of retool everything else to fit it. You know, you keep what you need and you go looking to fix up the survivability that you've lost, if you've lost any even, to be honest. It's incredibly powerful. I had one on my character right here. It's not a particularly good one, but the 80% here is really nice. The 80% here is really nice. And then this became 80% armor. So I kind of lost 20%, but I kept the armor, so it was all good. Additionally, you can get things like Supreme Ostentation, which would let you ignore attribute requirements. I don't know how good that is, but it's there. It's an option. You know, it's nice to have options. So one thing I like to use is Awaken Melee Splash. This is a really nice interaction with Dominating Blow because it gives you +1 to level of supported strike skill gems when it gets to a high enough level. And we get +3 levels to this gem from our weapon. And what this does is, when you have it socketed in, it gives that extra level to Dominating Blow, and it kind of curbs the loss of damage from, you know, not having another damage link there. The only issue with this is Empower is too much juice. You can actually bring Empower down to level 3 and you really don't lose anything. You could even bring it down to level 2 and you really don't lose anything, because these gems stop scaling as hard after level 30. Granted, it's still enough damage for you to want the level 4 Empower, but just a point to make is that if you have Awaken Melee Splash kind of leveled, you're far enough in the league for that to be available, it's very effective. It helps a lot. But most importantly, if you try to do content that's really clear speed demanding, say like a pure Cheula Breach, you need Melee Splash for the clear. You'll actually won't really feel the need for it in most mapping situations, but it is definitely way faster to run Melee Splash. Trust me on this. Lastly, I want to bring up the gloves Ceaseless Feast. If you take Ceaseless Feast, you are losing your +1 strike, so you need to anoint that. Well, you need to anoint Tribal Fury down here. I know it looks close, but this is too many points to waste. You need to anoint Tribal Fury to get that +1 strike back. The reason this is good is because Ceaseless Feast effectively reduces your opponent's armor to 0. Just like put in a bunch of stacks, and we are hitting, so it works. You get a pretty big damage bump off of it. It does come at the cost of survivability, so this is more of a Glass Cannon option, although Glass Cannon is very relative in this build. I personally don't love it the most. If I had everything else figured out, maybe. But with Bone Rings showing up, I get the feeling Ceaseless Feast is going to be a less popular option, just because getting good damage on your rings is going to kind of demand you have that life roll on your gloves anyway. Now get out there, call up the boys, and go slap the shit out of Ray Class.